Namaste and welcome to Common Sense, the Black and White Talks, powered by Fountainhead Global School and Junior College, the one and only institute which believes in transforming education for human flourishing. Complicated problems can be solved with just common sense in the right direction. Common sense is as rare as genius and the basis of genius. Today's topic is about art and science of relationship. The search for relationship is as disguised search for the self. When you fully belong to yourself, you can securely belong in a relationship. Conflict in any relationship serves as a catalyst for self discovery. Heartbreak in any intimate relationship unlocks a profound opportunity for self actualization. Purpose does not reveal itself as a grand epiphany, it unfolds slowly, one choice at a time. This session will explore these facets around the relationships, paving way for self discovery. So, never stop learning because life never stops teaching you. In the era of internet, you might believe anything can be found, but all this information is scattered and dispersed. The best lessons we learn in life are through experiences. Along with that, other stories and opinions can leave a strong impression on us. Common Sense, the Black and White Talks aims to bring experts from various fields to enlighten young minds. Transformation is the outcome of all authentic learning. So join us and learn from the best to discover your best. Did you know 2 out of 3 of adolescents aged 12 to 17 live with both parents, which is 66%, 24% with their mother only, and 5% with their father only, and the 5% with neither parent. The quality of parents' relationships makes a difference to children in many ways. A child trends analysis found that whether parents are married or cohabitating, parental relationship quality, how happy parents are in the relationship, is associated with child's behavior, problems, social competence, school engagement, and depression. So, Common Sense Black and White Talks is honored and privileged to have Ms. Sujata Ameya as our speaker for today's session on art and science of relationship. Ms. Sujata Ameya is a psychotherapist and a relationship coach who enables partners in a threshold marriage to reconnect consciously or disengage gracefully and transition powerfully. Sujata holds an MPhil in clinical psychology from NIMHANS, Bangalore, and has maintained a private practice in Hyderabad, India for about 29 years. Using a transpersonal and integrative approach, Sujata has helped over 14,000 clients. It could be individuals, couples, families, and groups to use conflict as a catalyst for self discovery and to journey through the life challenges as path to self actualization. Ms. Sujata Ameya, it gives me immense joy and pleasure to welcome to our talks.
Thank you, Meghna. Thank you so much for that warm introduction.
You're welcome. So, can you please share what made you choose this line as your profession and what is the precise domain and scope of your work?
Okay, so this is a question I'm asked very, very often. And I think it's difficult to share it in a very short thing, but I'm going to make it very brief and crisp. Just like with everyone, I think your childhood experiences pave the path for your pursuits, for your quest. So I was brought up by my grandparents in a home that was less of a family and more of a chowdhury. There were a lot of people coming, living, eating, staying, bathing, and I just felt very invisible and neglected. I had no siblings to play with. I had no friends to hang out with. There was nothing of going out, visiting parks or play dates or nothing at all. I just felt like I was growing up in a vacuum. So that helped me withdraw into my own inner world, into my head, into my imagination, into books, into a very strange world of my own making in my own head. So I think that paved the way for this quest of what is going on. What is this? What is my mind? What are these people? How come those people behave differently? How come my family is like this? Hundreds of questions. So very early, so this was one part. The other part was I found that people, irrespective of their age, would just open up and talk to me. So I'm talking about little journeys on the bus or train, old people, young people, same gender, other gender, whatever it is, people would just literally download stuff on me. So I think these two tracks got together and got me into this profession. And I'm just so grateful for this extraordinary privilege of having such deep access to people's lives, personal lives, their personal challenges and their struggles and their triumphs. So it's been an extremely enriching journey. So I hope that answers your question. Then you also asked me what is the domain of my work. So I have a quick slide that can help us understand that very quickly. Let me just share it. So this diagram explains my whole area of work. Okay, so we start with number one, which is to do with dating premarital, which then slowly leads to these issues, cohabitation, and sometimes people then get married. Then unfortunately, we have a lot of this going on where people are involved outside the marital boundary, one or both, same time, separately, different permutations there, which then creates very often, not always, but very often, the situation of a threshold marriage where either or both partners begin to feel that this can't go on anymore. From there, we come to transition. Now, transition is both ways. Whether you decide to continue in the marriage or you decide to quit the marriage, it is still a transition, because getting back into a very difficult relationship is as challenging as getting out of the relationship. And there, through that process is how people come to their purpose many a times. Like, what is it that you were precisely supposed to do in this life? Somehow relationship seems to open up that path for a lot of people. So this is what my whole area of work has been for the last 28, 29 years. This is all I have done. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely brilliant, brilliant work, actually. So I also see that you have authored a book called When the Beloved Calls. So please tell us some more on it. Like, how did you start getting to writing?
Okay. So, so related to my childhood that I shared, where I was pretty much isolated and I felt alone, writing was one of my go-to places. And then I was very fortunate in school to have teachers who were very appreciative of my linguistic skills, especially my English teachers. So I used to write all kinds of things and get some very good marks and feel very thrilled with it. But this book is a very recent thing, and it's got a very different context altogether. See, as the I don't know if you have had a chance to look at the reviews or the blurb on the back side of the book. This book is about what you do when you're in love and that won't go in the usual direction that we expect love to go. Meaning, you are in a situation where the other person is unavailable for whatever reason, geographical reason, emotional reason, social reasons, whatever it is. Does that mean that the love didn't have validity? Does that mean it's not deep or true? Or is there something else that can happen with it? So I found myself in that situation about 5 years ago. And just the intensity of the feeling, the intensity of the longing, and just the sweetness of that whole experience, it just came out as poems, which I used to post on Facebook with no intention of publishing. There was a gentleman who was a friend on Facebook. He kept saying that these are very intense poems, you must consider publishing. And I'm glad that he pursued. So the book is out, and it's an offering, like I say in the introduction, it's an offering of love, to love, for love, by love. It's just about the sweetness of liking, falling for someone just like that, unconditionally. There's nothing to that relationship. It's unlabeled and unfettered, just in just the purest form that it can possibly be.
Yeah, I was
So
about to say
that's
love
the book.
for, like, no expectations, no conditions. Lovely.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure, like, no, now that actually urges me to actually go through the entire book now. It's not just the back page that I'm looking at. So, uh,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
we would
thank
like
you.
to know more about your signature workshops, like the art and science of the beloved and art and science of
Self-actualization.
self-actualization.
Okay. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me just share a couple of slides that will make it quick and crisp and also easy for people to understand. This is the first workshop. So this, Meghna, I can't say I've been, but the first ever batch of this happened in way back in 1995. So we've had about 16 basic and one advanced batch about this. So this is our 100-hour experiential workshop that trains people to do what counselors do, to listen, to understand, to empathize, to challenge, to confront, to question, to guide, to enable people to find their own solutions, not give your own gyan, but help people on that process. Okay, so that's ASA, that's the art and science of self-actualization. Then there is the other one, which is the art and science of the beloved, which is a more recent one. I think we've had it only for about last 5 or 6 years. And earlier, this used to be a part of ASA. It still is, but this is also taught as a separate workshop. It's a very playful and fun kind of a workshop for people who can, I mean, they can be single, double, in relationship, not in relationship, doesn't matter. It just shows you what exactly you do in a relationship that causes, it to work well or trouble, whatever it is. And then they get insights and they can work on it. So when I say experiential, I just wanted to show some pictures of how it works. So we do things like this. This is personal boundary work. This is, I think, some other topic in the book. We use all kinds of props and toys and things to do. There is a lot of personalized intunement activities and various things like that. Couples, the listening skills, more of group discussions, the way we use support with people or not. So various things like this are done, which is why it is called experiential. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, and quite interesting as well. I can say that.
Thank
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
yes, it is. And I so miss teaching the workshop. With the pandemic, there's been so much demand to teach it online. It's impossible. How do you do that? Because your learning happens in your body. Your mind catches up later.
right.
So we can't meet, we can't touch each other. So I'm like really missing that. So waiting for some opening to happen soon enough. Yes.
So I will have to ask a question on that. So do you think that we can't take these workshops, create any kind of solution online for these workshops?
So here's what I've done, and I'm hoping to make a public announcement sometime in November. All of those activities, all of those modules have been turned online. I've made them online.
Okay, may I request
There's
to mute the
disturbance.
rest of them? Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
So uh, the modules, the content, the main messaging, all of that has been made online, has been made enabled for remote learning with PPTs and models and things like that. So
Right.
they can serve as an introductory seminar or a webinar now. But the insight that you get when you do something physically. Like when you stand inside a boundary and step outside a boundary, what it creates for you is lifelong. See, even today, from graduates as long ago as the 90s and the early 2000s,
Mm.
on a regular basis, I get messages. They keep going to different workshops and all this, and no matter where we go,
Mm.
what you've taught is so ingrained, it's so instilled, we can just catch up from there onwards. So I believe there's a lot of power in the physical activity that is part of the training program.
Right.
So it's a half and half now. We can do the online portion and still have some 2 day, 5 day kind of contact kind of a thing.
Right.
But just waiting for some more safety around this whole pandemic situation,
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
Aren't
yeah.
we all waiting for the same? I see that, students asking me every day, ma'am, how long? Everything opened except our school. I said, not just except our school. There are many other schools. All
The
other schools,
schools.
no school has
Yeah,
opened so far. So, yeah.
true.
Moving forward, what are the kinds of issues and problems people usually seek consultation for?
Okay, so uh, let me put it this way. There is no problem that people have not come for. Any possible issue in human life, the person can come for it. The question is not about these are little problems, those are serious problems. It's not like that. For some people, something very gigantic is still not a big enough problem. And for some, something very minuscule also is a huge issue. So the way to answer that question would be when they would have tried everything that they know,
Mm-hmm.
and when they would have consulted everybody that they know, friends and relatives and family and neighbors and everything, and that issue just persists, it just goes on, that's when they come. So it can be anything. There is no limit or no categorization of why do people seek therapy. They can come for anything at all, and this could be financial, career, personal, sexual, friendship, anything at all. But of course, now that in the last about 15 years or so, a lot of my work has concentrated around relationships. So majority of my clients do seek help for relationship issues. But then from there, it branches to different things. It branches to childhood unresolved stuff. It branches to decisions in career. It branches to purpose, your own life purpose, your soul purpose,
Right.
different things like that. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Because when we talk about relationships, mostly everybody would think like it's only wife and husband relationship that people
Mhm.
seek therapy for. But I come across like people who have issues with their siblings. I come across people like who have issues with their parents, or I mean, the most common one is with the in-laws for majority of the people. So yeah. So do they also seek consultation?
Yes. 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 I'm glad you're pointing this out, Meghna,
Right.
because unfortunately, the word relationship has become restricted and contaminated with the idea of only heterosexual involvement. But that's so sad. It's so restricted.
Hmm.
Relationship is anything, any inanimate, animate things, beings, people that are in interdependence and interconnection. That's how I define relationship, right? So yes, you're right. Siblings and in-laws, outlaws, any kinds of things. I've worked with people who are co-founders and who have achieved some great success in their first enterprise. They're planning to get into the second one, and all kinds of issues come up between them. I've worked with son-in-law, mother-in-law. I've worked a lot with women whose mothers-in-law don't come to therapy. I've worked with brothers and brothers and sisters. Yes, so it's across the board. It's not just marital relationships.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Because yeah, I see that most of the time, like a lot of families struggle on those fronts, and then they don't even realize that they can actually seek consultation in those areas as well. So that's the reason
Yes.
I wanted to ask. So
Yes, yes. And let me add one thing. Many a time, especially in our culture, a non-marital relationship in strain will start impacting the marital relationship. So in strain or in some confusion. So for example, if a sister is over involved with her married brother, the brothers and his wife are going to start having trouble sooner or later. Any which way. So wherever boundaries are loose or entangled, we have trouble. So it's good that it doesn't matter, whatever the relationship challenge is, it's good to look at it, to see how it can be restored to a healthful boundary. That's very important.
True, true. So, what is a transpersonal and integrative approach to psychotherapy? Like,
Yes.
how does it help individuals overcome their challenges? Do you think common
Okay.
sense has a contribution here?
Oh, absolutely. See, that's the problem. I'll say something and I'll show you a slide and then we'll come back to this, right?
Yeah.
It is because of the non-integrative, non-holistic approach of our education and our lifestyle that common sense has gone down the drain. If we had that, if we can restore that, if we can bring that back in our system, I think common sense will come back. So I'll just show you this slide, just a moment. So here we have the left brain and the right brain. So just remember it. I struggled a lot to get that out of the slide. It wouldn't work. So I said, okay, let that be. So by this holistic and integrative and transpersonal, here's what I mean. Anything in life, a situation, a problem, a non-problem, whatever it is in life, it actually fits into these 4 elements, or rather the 5 elements that are all over the place, right? That are the origin and the source and the destination of everything that is in movement in the world. That's how drastically I would put it, right? So we have the earth, water, fire, and air. So broadly, this is what they represent. The earth represents the physical body, fire represents the intellect in us, water represents the emotional aspect of human beings, and air, the transpersonal. By transpersonal, what I mean is, it is not to do only with the data or the situations or the information or the history from the time of your birth, and not just that is belonging to you at a personal level, but transpersonal, that's beyond the personal. That is the collective, that is the genetic, that is the hereditary, that is the generational. All those things also bear influence on us and our psyche. So that is what is the meaning of transpersonal. And what mediates all these 4 elements is the space, which is spiritual, which is represented that way. So as with the seasons, these are also cyclical. One impacts the other, one influences the other, one is influenced by the other. Yeah. Now, the lower 2, the physical and pertain to what we call the feminine archetype. Please don't mistake this for gender. This is not about man and woman. This is about the feminine quality or power or archetypal energies in us. And the top half, the air and the fire, that pertains to the masculine. Yeah. Then we have the top half, which is typically represented by the Western and the so-called modern approaches to things. And we are seeing the havoc it has played now, plundering the earth and ruining the human race almost. Yeah. And the lower half typically is how the Eastern and ancient approaches work. They are intuitive, they're receptive, they're inner based. All the, China, India, Japan, these wisdom traditions, right? So the Eastern and the feminine, they work in the invisible, whereas the modern and the Western, they work with the visible, meaning it has to be scientific, it has to be quantifiable, measurable, replicable. Otherwise, it is dismissed. So there's a lot in the world that we can't see, but it exists. That recognition and that reverence is there mostly in the Eastern thing. So in my work, what I try to do is I work with both. We need both. Any one thing is incomplete without the other. Like you can't say I'm just good with the earth and water, I don't need the fire and air. It doesn't work like that, and vice versa. So to include everything in the work I do is what I mean by integrative and a transpersonal approach to this. And this is based on the idea that wherever human beings or even non-human beings are, the natural laws of cyclicity and polarity apply. Cyclicity is the way the thing runs in cycles, seasons and growth and birth and decay, and that cyclical nature of life overall. And polarity has to do with everything exists in the opposites. There's a day and night, and the good and the bad, the up and the down. So these two principles, masculine and feminine, that also, unless you integrate that in your work is incomplete. So I'm very wary of people saying, I do this approach, that approach. It is like, you'll have to use the approach that is most beneficial for the client who's seeking your help. Yeah. So I hope this answers your question.
And loud and clear, trust me, because that depiction in the picture actually is like, it clears a lot of confusion when we just talk about it. When you show it, that clears a lot of confusion actually. So in your
Thank you.
long yeah so in your long innings as a therapist, what changes have you seen in the society, and how open and willing are Indians to go to counseling and therapy?
Okay. So let me answer the second question first.
Okay.
Today, by that I mean in the last, I think, 5 to 10 years,
Right.
increasingly people are very, very open and willing to go for counseling, okay, compared to the times before that. However, there's a caveat to it. It is primarily the urban population. I don't think that is still a trend in the tier 2 or tier 3 kind of cities, and definitely not in the rural areas, right? Also, it has to do with the migrant populations, wherever you have large metros with all these people coming in for a temporary period, doing their job, those people tend to be more open for this kind of consulting. Earlier, it used to be the youngsters who were more keen to come out and talk and discuss. Nowadays, I realize people, even in their late 40s, early 50s, all the way up to 60s, actually, also are opening up and willing to come and discuss and really explore things. Like just earlier this month, or we are already in October, there's a 75-year-old gentleman who reaches out and says, I have this issue, I want to work. So it's very heartwarming to see that. At the same time, it's also very saddening, because the way our social fabric has unraveled, a lot of what was automatically available as a buffer has gone, right? So for example, earlier we used to have the joint families, the extended families, the way our neighborhoods were organized. Like I remember growing up, if I was not at home, nobody missed me, nobody bothered. I could be in anyone's house. We don't have such things happening now at all, right? So there's just such a shift in the way our social structures have become, that professional mental health input has become a necessity sometimes. No more luxury, no more illness or problem-based kind of a thing. So that's sad. One more aspect is, when I began practice way back in the early 90s, people would come, especially families, they would come more for issues with children, wanting the best for the children. How do we parent? What are we doing wrong? What can we do, etc. And rarely about anything else in the family. And also, if the issue became about the marital relationship of the parent, which was impacting the child, the approach always was, so tell us how to make it work. Today, I see a drastic difference in that. People come more with the thing of, we are not able to make it work, and we want to know how to separate in a way that doesn't impact the child. So that's a huge shift I see. Probably the only outstanding shift I see.
Which is nice, the thinking about, still, even though they don't want to be together, they still have that, relationship with their children, that they don't want that to be impacted. Absolutely. So coming to
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Coming to marital relationships, they're complex. On one end and on the other end, there's a huge stigma around couples admitting to this particular fact. So this brings me to a very important aspect, like the current pandemic. We hear so much these days that the more the couples are staying together, the more we are getting to no cases of raising conflicts between them, especially in like working couples. Like, what do you have to say on that?
this this question, I've been asked talk after talk after talk, and I wish I could give a different answer, but I think this is what it is. I was saying that there is a shift in the social ambience and the social fabric from 20 years ago to now, 20, 25 years ago to now.
True.
Now, in the pandemic, there's a even more deeper shift. So let me explain that.
Hmm.
See, before Corona hit us,
Uh-huh.
we had our lives planned out in a certain way. Whether it was serving anyone, whether it was safe for the environment and good for the earth, nobody bothered. That's okay. But we had our lives. We were doing our things, rushing around every morning and doing our things.
Okay.
In that, there were certain systems which worked as buffers to absorb the emotional shock and the everyday stresses of all the family members, right? So the children had schools,
Hmm.
they had hobby classes, which was mostly, at least in the urban spaces, the driver's responsibility. Then the homes had maids.
Yes.
So any possible friction between the working adults or the non-working adults doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They were the absorbers there. And then the workplaces themselves, 8, 10, 12 hours you were out of the house with some other space, with somebody else in a different space with a different focus of your mind.
Hmm.
So the amount of interface between family members who
Hmm.
were actually related to each other was very minimal, very minimal. And if we had holidays and weekends, there were already always very, very busy plans.
Hmm.
There's no time to really face each other.
True.
What has Corona done? In one go, it has just, slashed everything. And now we are bang in the middle of one home,
Yes.
24/7, literally in each other's faces.
Yes.
So now everything that was not looked at, everything that was shoved under the carpet, everything that was ignored, that was avoided, that we pretended that it doesn't exist, is now staring at you in a magnified way. It's
Right.
almost like there's no escape.
Hmm.
So, one is the sheer change from a certain way and a momentum of lifestyle to a different momentum. That itself can strain any one of us,
Right.
right? On top of that, there is all this that's coming out from inside. And people don't have the wherewithal, the resourcefulness, the tools, or sometimes the willingness to do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it is causing conflict. It is causing a lot of conflict. And I'm not even referring to extreme situations of violence, physical violence. I'm
Okay.
just talking about normal everyday issues.
Mhm.
It has become very, very hard for a lot of people. Yes. Yes. So that is a problem right now. And I'm hoping that uh, however it is, people actually learn that the inner world is not such a frightening place. It's okay to enter the inner world. It's okay to explore. It's okay to discover who you are. It's okay to engage with yourself with more depth and more love.
Hmm.
And actually, it's not just okay, it's very enriching. So I hope that that's an outcome that will happen
Yeah.
in a natural way. That's really my hope.
Absolutely, because I remember, my parents or my grandparents' times, they would say uh, they didn't have any plans for a weekend as such. It was more or less everyday thing. So I still remember, whenever I used to say it's Sunday, I want to sleep for longer. My mom used to say, doesn't matter, it's just another day. You still have to wake up at 6 in the morning and things like that. And I can see that
Yes.
clash now between my children and my parents, that they don't agree on. They say, this is weekend, you can break all the rules of the a weekly day thing that you are supposed to do.
Yes.
I think, yeah,
Yes.
there's a huge shift there. And now with pandemic, they're trying to say that how they're learning from each other, how to give that
Yeah.
space to each other and try and have a better relationship, definitely. So in an intimate relationship or like a marriage, to what extent should one adjust, and how does one recognize that the relationship is abusive or toxic?
Wow. This is a big one, huh? This requires about 5, 6 chapters in a book. so, so um, there are several layers to it. One is just the sheer tenacity of a person and the sheer emotional resilience of a person, which also goes into accepting or not accepting toxicity in a relationship. Okay, so some of us are just built that way, that we have a very high tolerance for a lot of things people do, and we go on with ourselves. That's one kind of issues. But there's another kind of issue, which is the more common thing, where if there has been a childhood trauma, by that I don't mean some extraordinary, adventurous, dangerous thing that has happened to the person 1 or 2 times. I'm talking of trauma of a very subtle and almost invisible kind of a nature. We have things like, color shaming, body shaming, gender shaming, partiality, somebody not liking, somebody disrespecting, molestation. It doesn't have to be full blown sexual abuse, but all these tiny, tiny, tiny things that happen just as a result of growing up.
Right.
These things can create a certain sense of shame and grief, usually in women, and rage and contempt, usually in men. So these two energies are sitting inside as complexes within us, unexpressed, unknown actually. Most of people won't even know unless it comes to a head. Now, typically, these are the two kinds of people that get attracted to each other. And I make this statement always, whether it's arranged marriage, broker marriage, cyber marriage, love marriage, neighbor marriage, no matter what the marriage,
Oh my God.
these two people will come together. It seems like when some cosmic plan, or a cosmic joke, somehow that is how it will happen. Yeah. And there, the toxicity of both the individuals will keep feeding each other, and things can get very, very difficult. So, to answer your question, how much should one put up, how much should one adjust, and when should one say no? I think it's a deeply personal call.
Right.
If you are persistently feeling disrespected and your spirit is getting shredded on a daily basis, it is important to go see what's happening, take help, reach out, do something about it. But if you feel, this is just the way things are, all marriages are like this, that's a classic line everyone uses to justify a lot of abuse. All marriages are like that, aisa hi hota hai, those kind of things. Then it's a personal choice. So it's very hard for me to say this is toxic, don't listen to it, because that person has to be ready to see it as that.
Right.
Many a times, when we grow up with these kinds of psychological abuse, we ourselves don't recognize how we are being disrespected and why it is toxic. Yeah.
Good insight. So much, because usually, a lot of times they say that, oh, it has reached here, I think this is time to break up and all. Yeah.
True.
So I
True.
keep hearing that, but then yes, it is
Yeah.
all definitely personal. When people realize or recognize it amongst themselves, that is when they have to take a call. So this brings me to another sensitive matter. Like we women can cry, and it is like, it's normal for us. But men, they're not brought up like, crying, or like they don't cry. So can they reach out and express themselves? Like, what is the role of common sense here? Not
Okay.
that, if you cry, it is nonsense and common sense. That's what. Yeah.
Okay, so this is another huge topic, Meghna. I don't think I'll be able to do justice, but I just want to make some broad observations. Okay, it is a tragic price that we pay for being in a patriarchal system, where boys are literally beaten into becoming emotionally repressed. Literally. If a boy is crying, most likely he will hear, "Why are you crying like a girl?" Most likely. So it is considered unmanly to have emotions. Never mind expressing them. Expressing, though, you've reached the pits of weakness. Having emotions itself is not allowed for a man. Look at the kind of torture that human being might be going through, carrying this kind of a cross, right? So what happens as a result? They become completely disconnected from and unfamiliar with the emotional territory. Women, on the other hand, thankfully, are allowed emotional experience and expression. Not always, not to the full extent, but relatively speaking, they're better. So they are more familiar with the emotional terrain, with the inner scape of emotional life, right? So for a woman, it feels very matter of fact. I'm feeling jealous, so I'll make bad faces. I'm feeling sad, so I'll shed a few tears. I'm feeling really angry, then I'll cry a lot. I can do all that as a woman. For a man, this is like, what the hell are you doing? Because they're not familiar, they don't know what it is. I'm not saying all of them are like that. There are thankfully exceptions, but I'm talking of a majority of people. And there are many also who feel that lack, who feel that absence, who feel the deficit, who actually wish that they can be more emotive. But it's like a long journey of reconnecting with where it was disconnected, where it was shut down, and how to open it and how to come back. So men have a long journey to make towards emotionality, and women have a long journey to make out of sentimentality. See, there is a toxic side to emotionality as well, which is just this very overly sentimental kind of thing. For everything you cry, for everything you complain, that's also an excess. That's also in an imbalance, right? So I think both people have to meet each other in that way. And so to answer your question, how can they be helped to express? Same thing again. Unless that person feels that they are missing out on the richness of life because they are emotionally disconnected, what is the motive for them to go looking for it? There is no motive. So it is an internal personal call. If they feel it, they will go find it. Go find it meaning they will try to understand that world. What is it kind of thing, you know?
Absolutely. Again, like it's a personal willingness that they wanted to try out to,
Yes,
yeah, if they can
yes.
come out with it. Absolutely.
Yes, and so let me add one more thing. So, what could be helpful in this for those men who are actually wanting, willing, and ready to explore this space is art and music are two pathways that can take you to your emotional world.
Oh, lovely.
So, listening to soulful music, engaging in any kind of art, anything at all. It's not just, see, even our definition of art has become very restrictive. Anything that is creative, anything that engrosses you, anything that really holds your attention is your art, is your art. You're an artist when you're in 100% engrossment. That's the definition of an artist, at least as far as I'm concerned, right? So men can explore their emotional world using these approaches if they are interested. Theater, all these things, they can take you there.
Lovely, lovely. That's a very good tip for all the men hearing this out. Yeah, you can try that.
I hope so.
So, uh, could you share some few everyday actionable tips with our viewers to enjoy a better relationships?
Yes, yes. So this also, I think I would like to quickly do with a slide that saves us the talking and the explanations. Let me do this. I always say there is not one or two tips. There are 5 things you got to do to make sure that your relationship works well. All right. I call it the 5 pillars of intimacy.
Right.
So one is this idea of exclusivity. So exclusivity refers to the idea of giving 100% undivided attention to the moment in front of you. So, for example, right now, you and I are in an exclusive relationship because right now you're listening to me, I'm speaking to you, and vice versa, right? So exclusivity is a must if you wish to have a decent relationship.
Right.
Then we have something called respect. This is also a very different, a slightly different idea from the general ways of how we show respect in terms of thank you and please and sorry. This is to do with a basic acceptance that the person in front of you, even though you don't understand them and even though you don't agree with their stuff, they have a right to have their views and they have a right to exist. That it is not your duty or your obligation to proceed to change them. That is respect. Okay. Next actionable item to be done is care. Care has to do with not the typical things we do or that our Hollywood, Bollywood movies teach us about care, like chocolates and flowers and saris. It's not that. Care has to do with being in tune to the expression of what the person is asking from you, what are the stated and sometimes not stated expectations, to be tuned into that and to try and meet those to the extent possible and also communicate when it is not possible. That is care, right? And then we have trust. This, of course, is a no-brainer. We are not talking about breaking trust and betrayals and such big things. We're talking about trust at a very basic level. This is about the congruence between speech and behavior. So if I have said to you, I'll join in at 6:50, then I show up at 6:50. And if I'm late, I inform you. It's as basic as that, just a congruence between your speech and behavior. And then we have commitment, which is the attitude that now that we are in this relationship, no matter what shows up in front of us, we will handle it as players of a team on one side of the net, not as opponents or adversaries on both sides of the net. Yeah? So if you follow these 5 defined, clearly specific kind of principles, it is actually very possible to have a very good relationship. That infinity loop basically shows that they are all interconnected and they feed each other all the time. The more respect you hold, the more caring the person is, the more trust builds, and the more committed they feel. All of this is happening in a broad field of exclusivity. There's no division of attention. You're not doing multitasking, right? So that heart represents intimacy. Intimacy has nothing to do with sexuality alone. It is to do with this 100% presence and attention to the moment in front of you. When you have that, intimacy automatically emerges from that. So this is what I would say about your question, Meghna. And this axis, the respect care axis, strengthens the relationship. And the commitment and trust axis brings in stability to the relationship.
Wow.
So we talk of strong relationships, they have a lot of respect and care. We have stable relationships where there's a trust and a commitment, right? So that's the axis of stability and strength. So I hope that answers your question.
Very beautifully depicted. Now that people have seen this, it is stuck in their head. Thank you. So
awesome.
Can we know any upcoming workshops that you can suggest?
Yes. So like I said at the beginning, I'm going to be announcing in November. We have both the workshops coming up. These are now modules of 90 minutes each that are going to be online. And for the practicum, for the actual activities and for all the learning and the training that goes with it, I think that will have to wait for another couple of months. But people can follow my website, my social media pages, to keep getting updates about these things. I post on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and we also have a website. There are actually Art and Science of Self-actualization.
Lovely, lovely. So I would request everybody to keep an eye all these workshops that if you're interested, and it's so interesting, and it's like, it's not just about a relationship, it is about us as well. It's like, looking inwards and trying to see where we are and how we are as well. So it's very beautifully like, I can see with all these diagrams and like, explanation. Sure, it's going to be amazing, definitely. And coming to hashtag yet I did, today we are going to talk about Archana Suresh, who is founder of an NGO, Bring a Smile Foundation. So Archana and her team started helping people by distributing groceries to many people who can't afford during this pandemic times. So, and thanks Archana for sharing this on hashtag yet I did, and appreciate, because she was one of the speakers in one of our shows, and then she said that, yeah, I'm going to definitely do that. And thanks a lot for posting this hashtag yet I did. So hashtag yet I did is a campaign launched by Fountainheads Bilva Bunam and Tirtha Bunam, which is focused on empowering change and igniting innovation. So this is to try and create more and more positive stories around us, because there's something that we can't avoid, our negative news which are floating around us, but that can be compensated with positive news, is what these two girls believe in. And that's how this hashtag yet I did started off. So hashtag yet I did should be the beginning of a new chapter for society. So please share your compassionate or a positive story on your social media wall with hashtag yet I did, and don't forget to like tag your friends and family. So let this positivity spread far and beyond. So may I request Sujata also to give a shout out for hashtag yet I did, please.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll check out your page and maybe share it, or you can let me know offline how to do it. I'd be more than happy to do it.
Definitely, definitely. It's about like, any positive story or any compassionate story of you doing, helping somebody or anything. Just with that story, with a picture, if you have any of that, and just say
Mhm.
hashtag yet I did with the explanation, whatever you like,
Oh,
that picture depicts, and nominate your friends or family. Like, say that, now that
okay.
I've done it on my wall, I want you to do it. That's it. Before concluding this highly informative and enriching session at Common Sense, the Black and White Talks, I would like to extend a big thank you to the speaker of the day, Ms. Sujata Ameya, our audience for listening so patiently, and the technical team and the sponsors of Common Sense, the Black and White Talks, without whose support it wouldn't have been possible to share all these interesting stories, facts, and knowledge with these amazing people.